what is Neil de Beer's capacity? Because Neil's capacity could not be president. It could not be deputy president, but it could be a very good president of state security. My capability must come according to my expertise. So the focus in this country has become career politicians instead of being career servants. And I am one of them. I see it as a service, as my service to the country.
So we're here with Neil de Beer, who is of course the president of the United Independent Movement, UIM, and we've got a sort of facilitator, second interviewer, Dr. Panos Lazanas.
Who's that?
Yeah.
But Bagzai, everybody wants to know what's my opinion of Russia and Ukraine. Because I'm now on a roll, like ham and cheese. Why do we not go from aid to trade?
Of course.
They go, phew.
Neil, you mentioned something interesting just now in terms of we're very frustrated in South Africa that things are not working. But you said something about we're 28 years of democratic elections. Can you perhaps let our viewers know a very insightful opinion on that?
I think this country expects, as we always do as South Africans, even with the Springbok team, we always want to win. We always want better. But if you really look at it, this country is not a full adult yet. I relate it to, if you look at 28 years as a democracy, and when you were 28 years old as a human being, what was your mindset? How were you in maturity, in independence, in you are now right, doubting your dad's opinions? You know the facts. That's where our country actually is. But we want it sometimes to act as if it's a mature 50-year-old, and it's not. And I think we need to maybe at times not be that harsh on ourselves and understand that we've still got a long road to walk to become a mature democracy. And we are facing these challenges already.
And the moonshot, is that a reason to be optimistic? Do you see potential in the moonshot?
I think the word moonshot pact has got a lot of credence and prudence in people that have used that word before. And one of the biggest icons in the world in politics that I used to follow, and I look at irrespective of my fondness of people like Churchill or Golda Meir, one of the people I really, really looked at was JFK. And the pronouncement in those days when John F. Kennedy said that we would go to the moon, and that was the big, huge race of NASA getting there before the Russians got there. In the simplistic ideology, I don't know where John Steenhuisen formulated the idea of the word moonshot pact. But if it was based on that, at the end of the day, the declaration of a moonshot pact means actually it's a moonshot. To the normal human being, it might look that it is a out of bounds and massive reach. But if you really look at it, why am I excited about the moonshot pact? These three reasons. One, it is the first time that we are moving from a singular factual state to a multi-party state of coalitions. We are struggling with it because we've never had it. Shared power is very difficult for people who demand singular leadership. That's where we are. Coalition politics is formulating. Yes. Number two, I've always said in interviews, Donald, that the African National Congress don't do party politics in election years. They do logistics. Remember what I've just told you? And number three, 17 million, probably now 19 million people that will be eligible to vote that did not do so in the previous election. If we can put something on the table of a recipe that 17 million people are going to turn and say, okay, we'll go to the ballot box. We take over government and we change the country. And that's why I'm excited.
And do you see the involvement of civic society in this, or is it just a movement for political parties? Because the DA seems to think should only be driven by political parties. These are 6 or 8 political parties that were invited, but Others seem to think we need more. We need labor unions, we need civic society, we need social media influencers. This cannot just be political parties. It needs a brand. It needs something bold and exciting, not just political parties.
That is absolutely not true from the DA. I sit in those meetings. In actual fact, in the leadership weekly meetings, without divulging too much, I can tell you that the social compact, the ideology of civil society, and one of the things, funny enough, that the DA representative, John Steinhuisen, mentioned on record was, in the times of the struggle where the African National Congress and other entities were fighting for the liberty of this country, we couldn't do it without the UDF. UDF was not a political organization. The UDF was a social compact. It was a civil society movement inspired internally to bring change. A statement from this moonshot pact leadership actually absolutely echoed it, that without civil society, without the movement of civil organizations, the absolute intent of political parties will never ever bring the cause and effect of change. Without them, we are null on the record. So I would like to put it on record. We are 100% engaging civic organizations and the social compact so that they can come on board and bring that change. In actual fact, it is non-negotiable.
What was the turnout in 94 in terms of electorate participation in the voting process compared to now?
I think, firstly, just to put it in memory, when you asked that question, I saw a picture. I saw a picture of lines, hundreds and hundreds of people standing in line. Without a doubt, without knowing the specific stats, what I can tell you today, it was the biggest turnout of voting because we were enthusiastic. We wanted to change a country, and we didn't care to stand 8 or 2 or 3 days in a row to cast our vote. For many, it was the first time to do so. So yes, you could say that was maybe the reasoning why.
But isn't this the same? For many, it will be the first time. And should we have the same enthusiasm?
Yes, we must, because there's a difference now. In 94, we voted to change a country. In 2024, we are voting to save a country.
Exactly. So there's every reason for that.
Absolutely.
Enthusiasm.
Absolutely. And if there was ever a time for first-time voters, for non-decided voters, and for voters that gave up hope, to enforce one of their most principled rights of democracy, and that's to cast your vote, next year is it, without a doubt. It's a Rubicon, if you wanted to use a political phrase.
That's very interesting that you make the distinction between change and saving South Africa. Shouldn't we just then phrase this as changing South Africa once again, to get all those people out to vote again? Isn't that the terminology we should be using?
I think we will be surprised of actually the volumes of people in this country that are awakening to the fact of their own civil rights and liberty. A lot of things have contributed to that. 1, without a doubt, media. 2, smartphones. 3, access to information. 4, the explicit understanding that we tried change before, but what change did we try? If we say that we changed this country in 94, that everybody had the right to vote, yes, but you can't take a ballot paper to ShopRite and exchange it for a bread. So we might have had political change in this country, but we forgot to focus on economic change, which is more important than anything else. And now that we stand here, we say to ourselves, we can look back 3 decades next year on that change. There's arguments that we've had a lot of change, that, as I said, the analogy that we are still 28 years into a new democracy, so much must happen. But here's the fact why I say save a country. As much as 30 years built up a country, so has the African National Congress destroyed it in the simultaneous way. And when you get 0 plus a 0, it must equal 0. So we need to start all over again. I say the following analogy. You cannot kill a tree by chopping off a branch. You've got to pull out the roots. And that's where we need to go back to. But we need the country to help us pull on those roots.
We are very excited to announce the creation of a new YouTube channel, WorldView Real Stories, a channel that will take you beyond the ordinary. Join us as we venture into the heart of humanity's most captivating narratives. From untold histories to uncharted adventures, get ready to broaden your perspective, challenge your assumptions, witness the incredible diversity of our planet, and the shared experiences that unite us all. Subscribe now to WorldView Real Stories and embark on a journey that will change the way you see the world. Some people are suggesting perhaps having a pre-election cabinet. What is your idea of that? For example, now deciding who's going to be the Minister of Finance. The idea is inspiring hope of a cabinet.
I think there are two schools of thought. Coalition governments don't get formed before the election. They only get formed after the election. And there's a reason why. The reason is because we don't know what will be the voting capacity of every party prior to an election. The fact that there are parties, including mine, that are in the scale of parties' growth minute. We might go to an election and find that we don't get one seat in National Assembly. It then makes us irrelevant to continue within the shaping of a after-election government. So coalition partnerships, I know, will only be formed after the election. But the thinking prior to it is you have obviously gone through the leadership that are currently situated in the pact. You can see the DA is there, UIM is there, Action SA is there, the IFP is there, Freedom Front is there, SNP is there, and we've got people that are there currently as observers. For example, the ACDP, people like Musi Mayamani have come in and out and not made their final decision. And by the way, not one of us has. We can only form a decision after the current upcoming conference that is happening in August. So we've moved to get there. But if you already look in the people that we can choose to put a so-called shadow government together, I think that's the word, a shadow government. And the reason I like the idea of starting to say that person could fit into that capacity, not because he's politically aligned, but because he's competent. Yes. And what I'm saying is that should be the precursor to already kind of show the people what is our intent. Exactly. In other words, many people walk to the front of a restaurant and they actually say, "May I see your menu?" Exactly. And many of them don't enter because on the menu, they didn't get something that attracts them. So there must be a balance of saying, what is Neil de Beer's capacity? Because Neil's capacity could not be president. It could not be deputy president, but it could be a very good president of state security. Or it could be a very good minister of police, a minister of justice. My capability must come according to my expertise, my passion, but more than that, the added value that I can put down. So I don't think the debate now will go on who will be the president and the deputy. You might find that not one of the people in the parties qualify for president. You might get another president from outside. We don't know. But what we do know is we cannot continue with what we have.
Isn't it the voters, as you put it, the menu, the fact that this is what they want, the thing that should take precedence over the deliberations of this meeting that's happening in August? In other words, I'm sure they'll be talking what they want, but at the same time, who in that room is going to keep an eye on what the voters want? Because if I think of my own experience, I would say, show me the menu. It's an obvious metaphor. I mean, it's a no-brainer, right? Whereas the parties are arguing amongst themselves, nobody's paying attention to the customer, as it were. And so the question is, who's going to keep an eye on that idea?
I think that is possibly a watershed question.
Well,
because we have become so used to listening to parties
Yes.
that we forgot why we exist.
Yes.
I will give you an example, Doc. I said the other day that we forgot that being a politician is not a career. It's a service.
Yes.
I even muted in the UIM's scribed policies that no person sitting at any level of the three-tier government system may serve more than 2 terms. Because when you get a person who sits in a political bench for 30 years, that person has decided
Yes.
that his career,
Yes.
his equity, his security
Yes.
in tenure is making sure that the only thing he wants to do is to get re-elected.
Exactly.
So the focus in this country has become career politicians instead of being career servants.
Yes.
And once you defy that that is why you sit there, your mindset changes. And no doubt, the people that put you there are the people that you must be accountable to. And I am one of them that went into politics not because I see it as a career. I see it as a service, as my service to the country. And maybe that's how we could enthusiastically change people's mindsets. There was a time that politicians were noble. And those were the times when the people said, that man, that woman speaks for us. Not every single human being can be sought after generalization. Not all police are corrupt. Not every politician is there because that person has got nothing else to do. There are some of us that still agree that service is king. We used to have that in the police. We used to have that in schooling and education. And we used to have that in nursing and many other things. You didn't get into that to get rich. You knew that that was a lifelong service. There should be no difference from politics. And that is what we are fighting for, is that, and here I end on that question's pinnacle crust. The conscience of politics should be society.
Yeah.
A person like Pieter Groenewald or the Vryheidsfront Plus seems to have endorsed Willem Glabisa, the leader, the president of the IFP, as the next president of South Africa. What is your take on that? In terms of a shadow cabinet, there seems to be a new president arising.
If so, I wasn't at that point of decision. And it will be very, very wrong of me to comment on something that I don't know about. And maybe that's also a caveat for people to start learning. If you've got no comment, because there is no comment, then don't give a comment. My experience, without a doubt, is if you look at the Honorable Glabisa, without a doubt, when you speak with him, when he chairs a meeting, and when you listen to him, there is a big difference, Donald, between a politician and a statesman. There's a huge difference. And I will tell you, people like the Honorable Glabisa is a statesman. What is a statesman? It's a man that commands respect without demanding it. It is a person that carries decorum.
Yes.
And it is a person that unilaterally, when speaks, you listen. And it's not because of fear, but because of just absolute respect. I'll tell you who's another statesman in this country. Corné Mulder. There's no doubt. It's these people that when you look at them, when you speak to them, and when they have the opportunity to lead, you just automatically follow. We have great statesmen in this country. Some of them are still developing. Some of them have the potential, and some of them just need to get there. When we look at people in the current political framework, when you look at a John Steenhuisen, when you look at a Pieter Groenewald, when you look, hopefully, at a Neil de Beer, or when you look at a Herman Mashaba, they're all individual people in politics. And I'll tell you something. They all bring value. The problem is the perception out there is not always the reality in there. And you know me, Donald. I don't put things through a washing machine. I'll tell you if I don't like the guy or if I don't like the woman. I'm experiencing something that excites me, and that is that certain of the leaders are absolutely sitting back and going, okay, these are the demands that we need to meet. And I'm clear about it. I won't be part of something if there wasn't the hope of being part of something dynamic.
What is your view regarding the upcoming generation and the same topic? In other words, from the voters' perspective again, who do they, rather, what are the criteria, if I can ask such a question, I don't know, but supposing one can put the question right, what do you think the criteria are of up-and-coming South Africans, people who are in their 20s or early 30s or even younger? What criteria do they have to view statesmanship, leadership, service, as opposed to what we've had for the last 28 years? In other words, what are they looking for? What are the values? What do they understand and experience as value?
I think there are three things that I'm excited about when I look at my daughter, my sons, and now 2 weeks ago, my grandson.
Okay.
And when you look at that generation, they've got more capacity, opportunity than what we ever had. We did the hard yarn. I always say in my generation, they called me X. They didn't dare give me a number. They were afraid of us. Because we came from a generation which is totally different than the new generation. My dad was Google. And if I couldn't get it from my dad, I had to go to something called a library. And then instead of reading all the good books, I used to pull out Asterix and Obelix. The potential is there. The hard facts has been done by me. But we really have to look at what is the new generation's demands. I find, and you did mention it, off the cuff. It's a different generation.
Yes.
Their demands are more than in my generation.
Okay.
Because their access to information is definitely more than us. So the demands would be more. I find that when you speak to a new generation, my son doesn't say to me, hello, Dad. He says, hi, do you have Wi-Fi? This is the new introduction.
Yeah.
Not when you go into a restaurant about, do you make a good classic cheeseburger? What is the Wi-Fi passcode?
Yes.
This is a new generation of talking. If that generation demands not just out-of-the-box thinking, but getting out of the box.
Yes.
We as the political leadership in our generation, now I'm talking, politics have generations.
Yes.
If you look at the current generations, and sometimes you frown, 60, 70 years old is the current factual leadership on average. How do you have an 80-year person leading the youth? That's possible in Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma. But at the end of the day, I foresee that the hope of this country does not lie with the people of a past generation. It lies in the hope that us that served in the past generation, that carry the scar of history, will not inflict the same on our sons. It has to move on. Their leaders, who we should be at the age now of the next leadership generation of 50 years old, because that's how the political spectrum works. I see dynamics. I see a new dynamic. There are younger leaders that are making space, and I can't wait for that to happen. Their view of a leader is not my view of a leader.
And so is succession even on the table in the minds of those who will meet in August?
The people meeting in August already have amongst them a younger leadership.
They do.
And if you look at them, I'm talking specifically in the genre of how political generations work.
Okay.
The 60, 70, 80 are the classic mature leader within government, within being a minister and president. But if you look at the youthfulness that comes into the middle, I would say the 50, 60 years old are the next mutation.
Okay.
And after that, your succession should be then your 30 to 40 to 50 year olds. Joe Biden is not a youngster.
Which one?
And that is a fulfilled so-called democracy. So when you look at world leaders, with respect, their average systematic age is the 60s, 70s. But now you see a picture the other day, and I'm not going to use this, Cassie, of 3 current prime ministers that are younger. Your Justin Trudeau, variable, the prime minister of the United Kingdom, and the gentleman from France.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about their leadership style.
No.
I'm talking about their age. This is a new era where that is already dawning, that they need to be absolutely inflicting their succession on the youthfulship. And I can't wait to pass it on at the end of the day. Answer? I think the people that are meeting in August have realized and must realize that without the youth and without engaging the youth, we are lost.
Is it allowed to ask, do you think the ANC Youth League has something to offer?
Probably like the possibility that a cactus could water the Kalahari.
Interesting point.
No. I think they are so divided. You know, there was an era that if you had a strong youth league and a strong women's league in the ANC, that they actually formed the tip of the spear. They were the incontroversies. If you really do an analysis, they're gone.
Wow.
And they've not been effective.
Wow.
And therefore, one of the most critical stabilizers of the African National Congress has not been present. A weak youth league is definitely a weak ANC. And I would actually say that the EFF undoubtedly took over the youth league of the ANC.
Why is corporate South Africa, business, not more involved in terms of funding what would seem like the rational position? It seems like corporate South Africa, business, perhaps, I don't know, I'm spitting out names here, but the Ruperts, the Oppenheimers, they should get involved more in terms of funding. I mean, I think that's what happened. Well, I know that's what happened against apartheid. I mean, I think literally Nelson Mandela went to Mr. Oppenheimer's home to seek funding, to seek approval. I mean, why don't we see more corporate South Africa?
Business in the world is about deriving profit, no matter how you call it. We give it different names. We call it state capture. We call it influence. We call it bribery. We call it influence. And in the United States, they call it lobbying. But everything that you are trying to address is actually about a business person trying to influence a state so that it gets a contract. This has not become relevant in the past 10 years. This is as old as time. The problem that you've got, again, in a young democracy, where factually, Donald, at the end of the day, I'm calling it, we've only had one-party states. When you therefore have a one-party state, although you've got this ambiance that you've created of a democracy, it's utter rubbish. Democracy does not exist. Democracy only exists to the point where you allow someone to be democratic. We come out of a governance for, call it quits, 80 to 100 years, where singular party state was in effect, and where the methodologies of influence, call it through things like the Boeregarde, call it yourself the Broederbond, call it yourself the Illuminati, call it what you want. At the end of the day, you were favored because you favored government. Post 94, nothing changed. Corporates were still involved. Billions had to be made. And the new kid on the block, the African National Congress, who, by the way, got governance and democracy by surprise, had to immediately adapt or die. And what you then found, in my opinion, and you can go surface the many books written about this past, a person that has got a wealth capacity is not going to give up that wealth capacity. He will find, like a chameleon, a way to turn and to serve the new power. Let's call it straight. That is what it is. Where we went wrong is only one matter It wasn't changing a global system. It was greed. And in this country, greed took over consciousness. And when that set in, and we don't know exactly at what time frame it happened in this country, I can surmise. Because you can calculate it. I mean, Donald, let's be honest with each other like we should be. When Madiba took over, we had hope. I'm telling you now, the day that Mandela walked into that stadium and everybody got up and said Nelson, it was at that day, at that time, that South Africa thought, this is going to work. And then he left. Because we got Madiba, no matter your opinion of him, we got him 10 years too late. Enter Mbeki. What shoes to fill? What promises to deliver? Because in the era of Mandela, everybody was drinking the Oros, even me. There was no problems in this country. Everything was going to be free. Everything was free. And everybody looked at this man when he walked and went, aha, aha. And we went, wow. South African passports were accepted unequivocally, even Ireland called South Africa to mediate their peace. We were the absolute color of the money. What happened? Business didn't stop. Payments didn't end. Influence were not ceased to be bought. But the system failed. Because checks and balances went out of the window. Because people that never understood money now understood the value of money. And that system, I'm sorry to tell you, will not change unless we become conscious again.
Business is supposed to be trying to help the presidency. Do you think that means something?
I think, Doc, the problem is that business doesn't help.
Oh, of course.
NGOs do.
Okay.
Business people that are real business people don't invest into anything unless it soothes their conscience or it makes them more money.
Okay.
There's nothing like a free ride when you are a business.
Okay.
The concept of Ubuntu, the concept of Masakani, is in actual fact changed to tell you that if you want to be really charitable, only the wealthy do that. So when we do wealthy people giving to charity, I'm telling you right now, there must always be the viewpoint of asking the question, what's your vested interest? Yes, you get great people that actually give because they want to give, because they give because they're blessed. Yes, sitting one of them. But I realized when I became old and grey that the sentence that says, no good deed goes unpunished, became a reality. And the other one, charity, starts at home. South Africa, to me, is now the charity because it is my home. And business, real business, as you ask, must now take a stand.
Well, this is the question.
And they must now decide. Are they in the light?
Yeah.
Or are they still feeding the dark?
This is the question he's asking. He's saying, hang on a minute, indirectly, you showed up as a paucity to help. But as you put it, if it's a profit-motivated gesture, what would it take for them to, well, let me be bold and say, wake up?
I'll tell you what will make us sincerely wake up is when we one day go into a Woolworths, a ShopRite, a Spar, and a Checkers, and there's no more milk.
Okay.
I remember a classic story, Doc, of Geronimo,
Yeah.
the Indian
Yeah.
Apache, sitting on top of a rock with 8 of his warriors. And the impending Custer was coming to arrest him with 2,000 cavalry to arrest 8 Indians. And as he stood and he saw the dust, he turned and he said, apparently to one of his warriors, do you see oncoming men creating dust? in desert. He said one day that man will realize, after killing the last buffalo, felling the last tree, and poisoning the last river, that man cannot eat money.
Yeah. Well,
how far are we?
This is the question.
So, no matter the money you have, no matter the assets, no matter the capital, a country's heart and soul is when the have-nots are taken care of by the haves.
Mm-hmm.
I am absolutely astounded that we still use the terminology in this country of informal settlements.
Mm-hmm.
When do the informal settlements start becoming formal?
Yeah.
Now, there's not an excuse.
By the way, informal is another way of saying threat.
Yeah, informal is actually there to tell you poor.
It's a threat.
The masses.
To everybody else. Yeah.
And here's a caveat, if I may. The biggest failure of the ANC, whom I at once regarded as the sole hope of a future for this country, isn't the fact that they couldn't contain looting, isn't the fact that they couldn't move from a liberation movement to a government, isn't the fact that they actually needed more competency. I'll tell you what is the biggest failure of this government. They were not capable of taking the poor to middle class.
Yes.
And anybody that tells you you've got to actually revisit history, even a guy like Napoleon Bonaparte said, the day that the gap between the have and have-nots becomes so large, the pitchforks will come to the Bastille.
I had a sort of epiphany when you spoke in terms of what a person like William Wilberforce did, who opposed slavery, is the abolitionist movement, whatever. The anti-slavery movement, what they did is they labeled this organization supports sugar made by slaves, and this organization does not. Don't we need something like that in South Africa that says, Words or Pick and Pay or whatever, this is an organization that supports the ANC, Checkers or whoever, this is an organization that does not.
Donald, let's take a scalpel to this body called South Africa and let's quickly dissect it to the bone. Shall we do that quickly for the first time, straightforward telling you what is my opinion on this current government and the future? Can we quickly cut to the chase?
Yeah.
A communist can never think like a capitalist. A communist socialist can never understand that you willfully give anybody democracy. A communist and a socialist, accompanied by a nationalist, will never speak the mantra of free thinking, independent scenarios of governance, and enterprise that is allowed to gain free willingly capital. Let's cut to the chase here. The African National Congress has never been able to make its own mutation, to leave its fundamental DNA as an organization that is currently in a tripartite agreement still today with the South African Communist Party and COSATU, who are unionists. Let's dissect this. Let's stop running away from each other. We have to say that oil and water can exist in one barrel but can never mix, ever. Now let's dissect that, Donald. Let's go down the rabbit hole, straightforward, without fear or favor. A party who currently sits with people that are 60, 70, and 80 years old, they come from that system. Let's call it straight. And we actually expect people that drank the communism mug, that sat next to the fire, reading the doctrines of Mao Zedong, Stalin, and Lenin, and some of them even indoctrinating themselves with books like Mein Kampf, are coming to a democratic state in 94 surrenders that ideology. What a lot of rubbish. It is not true, and we are stuck in that mindset. the people that drank from that cool drink, like your Malemas. Let me tell you, Julius Malema is more of a capitalist in his own right than what he is a nationalist socialist on the outside. But the fact that he has decided that his Kool-Aid, his Pepsi Cola, is the fundamental basis that when he gets up and he says nationalization of banks, nationalization of the economy, taking land and distributing it. Wat die hel gaan jy daarmee maak as jy dit kry? Jy het nie 'n idee wat om daarin te maak nie. Die rede is, dit pas jou nie. So every time they get up and they jolt up and sitting there with absolutely stunning small little red jackets and uniforms, and they promote South African business, the bloody overall he's wearing is probably made in China. So it is absolutely derogatory to the principled mindset to think that we can change an ideology of people who were lectured and created out of the fire of communism. Remember, the ANC was not supported by the West. People that supported this government were all communists. Their friends were China. Their friends were Fidel Castro. Their friends were Russia. Come on, are we so uneducated in history? So, as long as that system of a partnership with an SACP and a union is enthralled in one collective, I don't see a future of this country's economic growth. And that's a fact. I am open to a public debate.
So you're saying there's no good side of the ANC? Some would say there's a good side, there's no good side.
The good side was the side of liberation and the entity that fought for liberation. That side of this African National Congress, to cause and effect a democracy, a liberty, can never be judged because that was inevitable. But at one stage, a liberator must become an operator. And the history teaches us in our neighbors that we have, in the people that share the values of so-called liberty. Name them: MPLA, FNLA, SWAPO, ZANU. How they do? And it's not because the countries don't have potential. It's not that the countries don't have wealth, Donald. Leadership in a modern world era of economic change, creating diversity, creating supply and demand, and an opportunity to be competitive does not sit in the shoes of a liberation party. They were formed to liberate. They were successful to liberate. Hou nou op. Your time has come. Move on, because we have to evolve. Even cell phones do that.
So then the real issue finally is not politics, it's governance.
It's not only governance, it's attitude.
Well,
And here it comes, Doc. Here's another boom for you. And spread this wide. There is a concept where people say, this can be done, but it needs political will. Political will. If we give you everything, machtig, we've given you an apple, we've given you a grape, we've given you a banana, make a bloody fruit salad. But you will look at it and you will go, I don't think the taste will be well. It's not for you to say. And that, sorry, Doc, is where I am telling you when people say, yes, sir, but this man talks like Donald Trump. No, I talk like Neil de Beer. But when you say, lock the borders up, get rid of the people that are illegal, they go, phew, he's unneighborly. He's xenophobic. Xenophobic's a gat. South Africa first, because we are the charity. I'm sorry.
No, you're right.
You get physically to the point where you suffer at nausea. French for totdat jy wil kots. You can only take it until it nausea. How many times, Doc, has this country had an opportunity to willfully murder each other? Many times. Yet the South African spirit says to each other, it's World Cup on Saturday. And then we automatically become one South Africa. If Vusi and Jan stands in a stadium and both got a Bokke jersey, let one All Black, one Aussie pick on Vusi, Jan sal vir hom donder. Yet a week later, we're back to racism. That's why I wrote an article asking for a World Cup every day. Mm-hmm. Not everything is lost, Doc. Donald, we will lose it when the lost South African disengages to no longer love its country. And here's another boom for you. Do you want it?
Yeah.
Here's another statement. Dit kom my soos 'n diep wortel. We have a beautiful country. We just have bad management.
I think it was Richard Nixon that said, the United States is not failing because of its people, it's because of its leadership. I'm paraphrasing, but that's what got him elected. In a recent State of the Nation YouTube, State of the Nation is a YouTube channel. There was a debate, a lot of prominent leaders were there. What's interesting, and I think it was probably mentioned before that, but Leon Schreiber mentioned it in that discussion, is that the Patriotic Alliance, I'm sort of pivoting now, but the Patriotic Alliance was funded by the ANC. So with your background, it would be interesting to know your opinion on that. What do you think of the DA's qualms with the Patriotic Alliance, and do you think it's possible that the ANC funded the Gator McKenzie and potential rival to the Democratic Alliance in the Western Cape?
I think it's another conspiracy theory. That's my humble opinion. I think when you look at people like Gator McKenzie and Kenny Kuneni, you really look at them. And if a person must stop actually trying to convince yourself that you can't give credit where credit is due, where you suppress the realistic statements because it doesn't fit your genre. Let me tell you, I might not like the methodology of Julius Malema. I might not like the way that a Gayton McKenzie speaks or operates. But if I had to say that I don't sometimes look at the machine that Julius created, the psychological barrier he has implanted in the scurry, that when you actually check a person in red, you automatically say, that man's EFF, when in actual fact he's just wearing a ShopRite jacket and it's the same color. It's weird that when we look at people like a Gayton McKenzie, who in himself, no doubt, has created some sort of genius, you cannot sit back and deny it. The machines they create, half of it is money. The rest of it is character. Does this country have space, Donald? I think that must be the question. Does this country have space for the UIM and Neil de Beer? Yes, it does. Is there space for the PA? Yes, there is. Is there a request and demand for the EFF? Well, 11% of the vote said yes. Is there space for the DA? Yes, sir. Is there still space for the ANC? No, sir. And the reason why is because simply, how long do you still need to show that you can do this? If the ANC is funding the PA and the genre on the PA is to vote for them, they're wasting their money. Gayton McKenzie said something which I must tell you today in a way I admire. He said, we will speak, govern, and work with anybody as long as we get power. What more fundamental, truthful statement do you want? And if it means at times, which he does, he has to work against the ANC and with the others, he'll do it. At least give the man some kudos. He's honest about that. So I don't think there is this co-conspirators of that one underlining funding that one. I think they're fighting for space. They are fighting for their block of malva pudding, and some of them just get a tip of custard. We are also sitting and people will say, who's funding you, Neil de Beer?
Exactly.
You call yourself a neoconservative. Are you funded by the woke regime? Are you a Zaros person? Are you part of this world order? What a lot of crap. I am funded by me. I am funded by the people that sit there and absolutely like the fact that they have no idea what's coming out of my mouth next. But they know it's the truth, and I'm not scared to say it. So we all have a place on earth. I will tell you what I think about that. It's about numbers. Let's go to brass tacks. The DA has an X amount of numbers. Question, will the DA have 50 plus 1? No, they don't. They have admitted that themselves. So if you look at a possible 22 to 25% gain in their total vote next year, they still need 26. If you look at the IFP, their mission, their declared mission, is to remove ANC power in KZN. And they are busy winning that fight. So they've not turned around, Donald, and said, South Africa is my oyster. I always believe that if you say something more than 8 times in one conversation, you are starting your own narrative. It's politics. I think opposition politics in this country has conformed to that style of where we can say to a person that the reason you are different is the reason why I don't accept. It's politics as far as I'm concerned. What is clear is that a person like John Steenhuisen publicly admitted that he did meet Kayton McKenzie at the braai, at Corne Mulder's house. Yes. But this is not a secret. At that discussion, there was an absolute possible understanding, not being there but listening, that they would work together. And then after that, apparently, there was a total turnaround from the decision to the new decision of the Patriotic Alliance. Nelson Mandela said something that always interests me. He said, just because that is your enemy does not give you the reason to make them my enemy. Your enemy might be my friend. The fight between the DA, the arguments with the PA, the scenario where you have equitable positioning between the IFP and the ANC is about politics. But here's a question. Trust. Now, when you use the word trust and politician in one sentence, people tell you, but you're mad. No. If you are going to form an alliance with us, you must choose. We don't ask the people like the PA to choose because they fundamentally told us, don't ask us to choose. That's their right. But fundamentally, the moonshot pact, the ideology of a side of light and a side of dark, and I don't always mean to say it is between good and evil. I just classify it as what I see according to ESCOM. Some are keeping us in the dark, and some of us are fighting for light. Therefore, light and dark, you must choose. And at this current moment, when you look at the people that are sitting in alliance, it's all the parties that have taken a categorical decision. We will not work with the ANC, and we will not work with the EFF. That's our decision. Now, anybody in? And if you are in, if you conform to that decision, you're with us. Again, this is democracy. If the PA, and I'm telling you, Kayton McKenzie will make decisions what suits the PA. So we mustn't stand back now and go, pity, and so decisions have been made. But here's my caveat to it. It's about numbers, Don. If we are really sincere, thinking that a coalition pact against the current governance and parties is going to yield us the numbers without certain critical parties being present, we're also wrong. But can you change the fundamental ideology? Swart, soek swart. And that is still a democratic decision. But here I will end that point by telling you, I think the leadership of this Moonshot Pact may be soon to be changed to any other name as what you want to call it, but you now know who I'm talking about. We will not shut the door until the very last. It will be unwise to do so.
A lot of people say it's either the ANC, EFF, or whichever way, or us. I'd like to put a third option on the table, and this is, I can give you references from other countries that I have some limited experience from, which is this. The third option is nobody does anything. The swamp continues. The country, one by one, all the, ESCOM, the ports agency, all of this collapses. And then what happens is others buy it at sale prices. And I can speak of Greece, for example, as a classic example. The port went to the Chinese, the railways went, I think, to the Germans, the ESCOM equivalent went to Germany, Italy. I mean, they pretty much sold the whole country to foreign interests. And they're actually paying rent, the citizens are, to live in their own country. Now, to my mind, this is a much, what can I call it? It's a much hotter coal. It's a much bigger problem in terms of day-to-day economic reality than who wins the election. And again, maybe I'm wrong, but I haven't seen many people talk about that. Nobody, in fact. As far as I know, it's either the ANC or the coalition. Okay, hang on. Those two are there, but what about if nobody does anything and the swamp continues and the bickering and all the nonsense, and then everything one by one collapses? Of course, I don't want to go into it, much more competent people than I, Frans Cronje, for example, and others have spoken. I don't want to go that route. But the point is, there's a distinct reality. There's a whole grouping in South Africa even, and overseas, who are, in fact, what I read recently, sugar, the sugar in KZN, what are they called? Hewlett, I'm not sure, got bought out by another company from South Africa. The point of the matter is, one by one, things collapse, and other local or overseas investors buy it for nothing. What about that reality?
I don't fight the ANC. I don't give an opposition to the ANC. I bring better solutions to government.
Right.
If you start to play, I'm better than you, and you worse than me, your focus becomes irrelevant.
Yes.
Your focus then becomes so focused on destroying the opponent instead of proving to the world you are the best.
Yes.
So that's the first thought I bring to the table. In this Moonshot Pact, the coalition, the grouping, there's a lot of discussion and debate about what we should be focusing on. And there are clear mindsets within that leadership to say, stop telling the people that the ANC is bad.
Yes.
That is not our mission. Our mission is to deliver a new dream, an ideology that if we choose right, elect right, and appoint right, that this country can work. The second ideology is a Russian said one day, if good businessmen and country burn, leave country, make money outside, and when fire stop burning, come back and buy country at a cheaper price. But then another Russian said to me, when there's blood in the street, trade. These are the conflicting ideologies from many. People want to run who have the capability to run. People leave not because they're just scared. They want a better life and they don't see it here. And truly, like South Africans are, verraaiers, traitors. What a lot of rubbish. He just got a better deal as a doctor in Alaska. We've got to stop
Yes.
saying to each other
Yes, yes.
that to break another's ideology is a better ideology?
Mm-hmm.
No, you've just broken someone else's ideology.
Yeah. There's nothing better about it.
And I call it an ideology of the lesser IQ.
Yes.
Because to sit here, Doc, and say, this car's ugly, but you don't have your own design, then you are but a critic.
Yes.
I always say a child can tell you that the car's wheel is flat, but a person that has understanding can tell you where the spare wheel is. Cope did it.
Uh-huh.
Cope was born out of the ideology of the ANC and hate. The EFF was born out of the ANC and brought hate. Where did they go? How are they faring? Yes, you've got major populists, but you don't govern anywhere. In time, maybe, Piccolo, Picky for Picky. If we start saying that the future of South African politics is to destroy another form of politics, then we are totally missing the ideology. We need to come with a new construct, a new plan. And I know that word new, new age, new future, it becomes a slang.
Yes.
But I would like to say that July or August next year, when that election is called, that a time of regeneration will come out of the volcano filled, and that the warm lava spewed today in anger will at the end of the day become new land. Because that's what happens to a volcano's lava. It might be horrifically fiery and destructive when mutated, but when calmed by the sea, it becomes new land. And I see it as that. Otherwise, Doc, all of us in this country at one moment must say that we will no longer do as you say, and that is to have hope that we can do this in the future.
See, the picture when I asked the question originally was, often you get two rams or two butting heads, you know what I mean, the ANC and the others.
Yeah.
And then the lion's sitting over there, and he starts running. They're not seeing what's coming. They're just seeing what they're doing, you see.
They say when two bulls fight,
Yeah, exactly.
it's only the grass that suffers.
Yeah.
And that's when I'm saying, I think the world is at war. They've just not declared it.
Yes, openly, yeah.
When we sit back and we say to ourselves that we should arrest Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin, you have totally drunk a substance, which must be illegal, or you are living in Lala Kukuland. Because while running around and sorting arrest warrants for Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin, why don't you just bloody arrest the people on the Zondo Commission
Exactly.
first?
Yeah.
So we've got this massive ideology. Ons gaan hom moer.
Yeah, exactly.
This bear is going to be incarcerated. Let me quickly tell you.
Yeah, yeah.
You incarcerate a guy like that. We don't even have a navy to protect us if Mozambique attacks us with a canoe tomorrow. And you want to arrest the world power? Jy's moertoe. I am telling you, the efforts that we should take today is to stop crime, eliminate gangsterism, lock up the looters, send to jail the people that are corrupt before you want to go arrest bears and chop off Chinese dragon heads. You've got to become a realist.
Okay, but
This country does not need to live in Lala Kukuland. It needs to go back to basics. And what is basics, Doc? What is basics, Donald? Food, security, justice, job, and dignity. And if you can give those 5 things to a society, you will have a society that we can be proud of. In my speech, I can launch it right now if you want to for the first time. The United Independence slogan for our election is only 2 words from now on. Jobs and justice. there is nothing else that counts anymore. Because if you create a just society with a justice system that works, policing that implements, and correctional services that correct something for a change, you will have a fundamental basis where society can believe that they are safe again. And then at the same time, once you have implemented justice, corrections, policing, law enforcement, and safety, you will create a systemic system where infrastructure and investment will flourish. This country today needs jobs, but it doesn't have a conducive environment to seduce, to seduct, to bring in the people that will say, I am prepared to put my money down and I will do it following. Until we don't have that balance, just jobs and justice.
To whose benefit is that?
To the people.
No, sorry. To whose benefit is it that it isn't so? In other words, who's benefiting from the situation you describe? Because to me, I'm asking myself, it's a cliche, follow the money. In other words, as things are, the citizens might complain, but there are other people who are benefiting. And they never mentioned. This conversation, in fact, never happens as far as I can see. If seldom, sometimes people raise it and say, well, hang on. When crime happens, the person who owns the crime probably lives on the other side of town, not in the flats. And so that discussion, that's what I'm saying. In my mind, a real threat, if I can use the word, it's a heavy word to use, but is the lion looking at the buck fighting, waiting until one of the two does what he does, and then pounce and eat both of them.
Anarchy is an onion.
Yeah.
Shall I say it again?
Okay.
Anarchy is an onion.
Yes.
It has layers.
Exactly.
And only when you start peeling the layers will you understand who is at the root of anarchy.
So let's not lose sight of that, because I don't think this is the time or the place to expand on it. But what I want to say is, hang on, this isn't just about the ANC and the others. It's about the ANC and the others in the light of what could be coming. People haven't, perhaps, I don't know, just a contribution.
I think we are abused.
Okay.
I think this country is a beautiful Magnus flower, and it's been put into a fridge in a dark corner.
Okay.
We went into COVID. No matter your distinction of COVID, we went into lockdown. This country stopped functioning as a society in COVID.
Yes.
Yes or no?
Yes.
After COVID, we then get a literal shock to hear how much money was stolen in the name of COVID.
Yes.
We just recover from that, Doc, and we go directly into Zondo.
Yes.
1.3 billion rand, 3 years, 8 volumes later. We then just recover from Zondo, and we move into Eskom and Andre de Ruyter. You know what? No prize fighter in the world can take 80 hits in a time and say that I will survive. This nation is so punch-drunk, so hurt, so traumatized with one hit after another. No wonder we're drowning. We are begging for oxygen, and while we beg for it, they're probably stealing the oxygen tanks as well. Now, at one or other time, God must liberate. C'est vous, non sans liberté. At one or other time, freedom must come. Because such a great country, such a country of historic wealth is being taken away from us, the generation and the people that love it. There's only one way to solve this. And people must now listen to what this man says. Freedom, liberty, justice, dignity, and humanity at times needs revolution. There are certain plants, Doc, in this country, like fynbos,
Yes.
that requires fire to spawn. This country does not need a war combat revolution.
Okay.
It needs a revolution of ideology,
Yeah.
a revolution of hope,
Yes.
and a revolution that the future will come, and if not today, it will come by the following generation, who believes that this country is better united than divided.
Then divided, exactly.
And only then,
Yeah.
when we spew the words of exit, secession, independence, and we turn back and we ask ourselves, is that really what we want? Or is it that once again we will be proudly South African?
Yeah.
I listen to debates of exit. I have partaken in debates of independence because calculatingly it makes sense, all of it. The freedom of the Cape, the massive expression of trying to be independent, must start listening that KwaZulu-Natal also probably wants to exit en wil wegmoer en kakkemas. Ons wil almal wegmoer. Is this really what we want? This time not through Ossewa or Brandwag. This time with probably a Peugeot, a Clio or a Volvo to come to. Met 'n trailer. Maar waartoe wil jy moer?
Yeah, exactly.
Naar watter toekoms wil jy indor? We are there. We have moved. We have traveled.
Yes.
And we came to this country so diverse, so different. Probably in my native language of Khoisan. Dat beteken tassa. We have such tremendously diverse people,
Of course.
and we love the living cock out of them.
Yes.
We love them.
Yeah.
You know, when you leave this country and you go to Paris, you go to Munich, you go to Wassalam, Dubai. 6 weeks later, you're going, ja, ek soek 'n braai man.
Yeah.
Geel vet biltong, koeksuster, cheese en nyama, 'n bietjie pap, fish and chips, en 'n bietjie tsai. We miss it.
Yes.
You know, when I come back and I get into this plane, I land in Cape Town, I can't wait to open the door and let a guy come to me and say to me, "Who's that?
Yeah.
Wat maak jy hier?"
Yeah.
You miss it.
Yes.
I want our country to start missing it again, and the leaders need to start deciding, are they leaders or do they all want to be conquerors? If you're a conqueror, revolution will come, but if you're a savior,
Yes.
people will follow. And that is what I say. You know, there was a TV program, Doc. It was called Net 'n Bietjie Liefde. It was a cult thing, Net 'n Bietjie Liefde. I think we've now gone past that and we're back at Nommer Asseblief.
Yeah.
Nommer Asseblief. So from our point of view, we celebrated Afrikaans 95 years old 2 weeks ago. Ek praat daai taal. Ek is 'n Afrikaner. Is jy 'n Afrikaanse of is jy 'n Afrikaner?
Uh-huh.
You see, when I say, well, love that song of Steve Hofmeyr, racist. Well, Madiba looked well in the number 7 jersey, communist. No. We don't have to fit in a certain box to appreciate the square size of a box. And that's maybe where we need to go.
What's interesting to me in terms of what you mentioned is that South Africa's sort of stance in terms of survival. We all constantly striving to survive. And going back to that YouTube channel I mentioned, State of the Nation, where the guy, I think it's Mike, whatever, I can't remember his surname, he opened a statement with, South Africans are tired of being resilient. We're tired of being resilient, just surviving by day to day. We want hope. And it's sort of interesting now in terms of what you mentioned. It resonates with what he says, what everyone seems to be saying, that we're tired. We want solutions. We want hope. We want a new vision, and we're tired of just living by day to day.
A boer maak 'n plan. That's our biggest mistake. Yet our biggest positive attribute. Power goes down, kom ons braai. Load shedding, klap 'n Weber. We come up as a nation and we make a plan, no matter who you are. Informal settlement has an economy, Don. No matter what happens, the economy goes on. What I'm more interested in is not your CV, because the CV tells you where you were. The other day I heard this concept, that I am not interested in where you were. I'm interested in where you're going. That's more relevant to me.
Is that not missing in society? In other words, people don't know where to go. They know within their own little world. And perhaps is that not something, again, broken coalition, caught in survival, all of these things, right? Is that not perhaps wise to start thinking, at least, if I'm living in a township, if I'm living in the suburbs, or wherever I am, wouldn't it be wise for me to know, take the following 5 steps? First, to be facetious, register, then vote, then, whatever it is. In other words, what would be the wise instruction to the population of South Africa, given the threats from outside and within, given the political infighting, given all of the stuff that we know for the 20. In other words, what would be the useful step-by-step suggestion, recommendation to the South African public to take back their own power instead of waiting for someone else to come and fix it? In other words, what should the citizen do rather than wait for some politician to do?
I think we banned the word leader so easy as part of your mouth.
Yes.
What's a hero? What is really a hero? You know where I come from? We were told about heroes. Racheltjie de Beer. Same surname. Probably not family. Racheltjie de Beer and the story of Racheltjie is about a sister and a little brother getting lost in the cold of mountain, and to the point where the snow became so bad that she dug a hole in the snow, put her brother in the hole, and went to cover that hole with her body. And that's how they found her. Voorraad Woltemane. Taking a horse, seeing a ship sink, and going in and fetching them, and on the 7th or 8th one, dying. We need heroes again. Not Marvel, not capes, sword, fangs, and Thor hammers. We need ordinary people to do things that are not ordinary in a time where nothing is ordinary anymore. What is a leader? A leader does not choose himself. A leader is chosen. A leader who does not have this one word, in Neil de Beer's opinion, should never even attempt to be a leader. And you know what that is, Tom? Compassion. That's a big word. Compassion. When you have a leader that walks to a person and says, "How are you? And how is your family?" What? You must see when I do that. The first question is obvious. But the second question, how is your family? Is showing a person that you care.
Yes.
We have become so busy trying to find out who's leaders instead of leading. This president, Cyril Cupcake Ramaphosa, who I call Cupcake because he just sits there and glows, he's not a leader. And I'll tell you why. A leader, true leader, and I'm not insulting him, he's a good man. But he finds himself in a position where he's dictated to as a leader.
Okay.
Now, if he's not, I withdraw and apologize. What's the chances I'm wrong? A leader takes a decision. He takes it with immediate effect. He takes it through conscience and gut feel. He does not get swayed by anybody. And he stands with that decision, come hell or high water.
Yeah.
Now, do we have that really? And I might be wrong. Do we really have that in the current leadership?
Yeah, but this again.
Do we have a person that gets up and says, build a wall and drain the swamp?
Yeah.
And if he's wrong, we'll stand by his opinion.
Yeah.
Leadership comes through gut feel.
Yes.
Leadership comes through conscience.
Yes.
And leadership comes from an informative, decisive, effective, immediate decision. Now, if I was the person in this country standing up as leadership, and certain people pray I don't, because it will be a total different South Africa. We will no longer be abused. We will not bring water pumped and filled chickens from Brazil. We will stimulate the economy. And we will make this country competitive by going to the farmer and telling him, this is how we are going to help you. There's no tax rebate, Donald. There's no one that goes to the farmer and says, the diesel that you buy, there will be a grant allocation and a deduction at the end of the day on your tax.
Okay.
There's no one that goes and says that the 3-year moratorium on paying debt of land and debt of income to plant, that you will get a piece of freedom and a rebate for 3 years. There's no one that says we will take Calvinia lamb to the market of Abu Dhabi and as a government support you to put South African lamb first.
Yes.
Why don't we do it?
That's the question.
I'll tell you why. We don't have the guts, we don't have the authority, and we don't have the will to stand up against world markets. This is simple. This is Lego. Click, click, block. This is Monopoly, but just don't buy Elof anymore. One Elof is moved to. It probably exploded. So from my point of view, when we go back and we sit down and we say, get the basics right. But you know what? To get the basics right, you had to live the basics. When you look at politicians and you derive the 400 who sit within those benches, do me a poll and ask how many ran a business.
See,
I'm very interested. Are you not interested, Donald? Have you done so? Have you taken 400 parliamentarians in the current government and asked how many of them can read a spreadsheet?
Yes.
How many of them knows about supply, demand? How many of them knows about income and expenditure? How many of them had the stomach-turning mindset of knowing the 25th of the month is coming? How many of them understand what is willful marketing? What is exposure? What is cost effectivity? What is debt? And what is relief?
Yeah.
How many?
No.
Yet you ask them to make laws about industry. No, wait a minute. To talk of a horse, to write of a horse, and to bloody ride a horse are 3 different things. So that's my basics.
Well, I hope
Support South Africa first. Be unequivocally, unapologetic, proudly South African. Go to war, if necessary, with opposing countries to put your product. Now, I leave you on that sentiment as follows. People live on fishing rights, yet we sell it to China. We don't bargain because we don't have the nuts. Die rugby balle, die tennis balle, die cricket balle. We don't have the balle to sit down and say, I'll tell you what, Shinini, Shinana, Namaste, Shehe. Ons kom hier dan. The closest you get there is to Kompong chicken. Want jy gaan daar om te vreet, not to negotiate. Now hear me well. It's time that we say, no problem, visual waters, pluk ons harders, moer ons makreel. But you will build the canning plant.
Yeah.
You will build the factory for assembly in this republic.
Yeah.
You will employ 100 people and not one of them, Shinini, Shanana.
Yeah.
They will be South African.
Yeah.
Because if you do that, that's a good deal.
Well, it's a start. I don't think it's a good deal.
Now, let me quickly tell you.
It's a good start.
I'm going to show you something now which I did in a speech.
Okay.
Will you follow me?
Of course.
Will you come with me?
Oh, yes.
Because I'm now on a roll like ham and cheese. This is Africa, Doc.
Yeah. Yeah.
You go to the world and you tell them,
Yeah.
what do you think of Africa?
Yeah. Yeah. Give me.
So they will go to India. Haha, how are you doing?
Yeah.
And then they'll go to China, Shinini. And they'll go to America, welcome. They'll go to Europe and they'll go, Guten Tag, wie geht's da? And then there's an African and they'll go, Shane, you made it. This is true.
Yes.
Am I lying?
Well, it's a general
This is the
opinion.
national opinion
Yeah.
of Africa.
Yeah.
Begging bowl.
Yeah.
What if you remove one hand? Hear me well.
Uh-huh.
Are you ready for this?
Yes.
Another boom.
Mm-hmm.
Why do we not go from aid to trade?
Of course.
It's one hand.
Yeah.
But you said it a couple of minutes ago. They want us here. They want us here. They want anarchy.
Yes.
They want poverty.
Yes.
They want us to be at the begging bowl.
Yeah. They want.
They want our oil.
Yeah.
They want our steel.
Yeah.
They want our gold. They want our diamonds. Yet they degrade us to junk.
Yeah.
Funny.
Yeah.
Funny,
Uh-huh.
So you tell us that we are not liquid, we are not tradable, maar jy vat ons sta. The time has come
Manganese.
from aid
Yeah.
to trade.
Yeah.
But to organize trade, you better have cricket balls.
Uh-huh.
Because if you really care, Donald, no pun intended, if you really want to play the trump card to an opposition, pardon the pun, you've got to be good in what you are doing. No international trade can be done if you do not walk away with something equitable. And what is it? The world market has changed and this country fluctuates between West and East every time a new president
Yes.
takes over. Yes or no?
Yeah.
Sure. BRICS. I hear it's not being BRICS anymore. It's now BRICS.
Something.
Nou, ons gooi nou name. We're adding another S and another W. It's going to be BRICS.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's now BRICS. Because we're adding Saudi and we're adding another country like Peking and Taiwan. BRICS. What have they got all as one fundamental ideology? BRICS. They're the East. They are trying to show an opposition to the West.
Yes.
Because in BRICS, I don't see Germany, Britain, America. I don't see them there. The battle of the world, not at war yet, but at economic competition, has begun. We are trying to find the middle path. Which one should we go for? In the Zuma era, we created BRICS. I don't know what Brazil is doing there. To be honest with you. But it probably needed another word. BRICS. BRICS sounds like a man. So we have Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. That's who they are. Look at the current stance in Russia. Who is standing talk with Putin? Well, it's BRICS. Now, just quickly let me share something with you. What if he's right? Putin. What if he's right? No, you've got to go there.
Yeah.
You cannot just stand and say, what if he's wrong? An intellectual will start saying, but what if he's right? Gooi het tussen die hoenders. What if he's not wrong? What if he says, I'm just going with you. What if he says, I'm not going to be bullied? You will not put NATO next to me as a neighbor. We're quick to forget, hey? We're quick to forget that America was about to go to war because people put missiles in Cuba. No?
Yeah.
Was Kennedy not preparing for the Cuban Missile Crisis?
Yes.
But you don't want to agree that there could be a possibility. Putin finds him in the same seat. It doesn't suit you, does it? So let's quickly go with it. May I? Because everybody wants to know what's my opinion of Russia and Ukraine. No one wants to know what is happening currently in Delft and Manenberg with the slaughter of our children. So let's go there, Doc. I don't know if other leaders are talking to you like I am. What if Putin's right? What if Putin gets up and says, I have the right to establish my own economy? Forget about territory. What if China, through Xi Jinping, turns around and goes, I back Russia? Oh. And India says, I'm in. Have you calculated the populace of just those three countries? Russia, China, and India. I left maths to do agriculture because I couldn't count at school, Doc. And the first day I did agriculture, they asked me to count sheep. I was murtu therefore in any case. But go with it. It is becoming a choice of which economy you are going to be part of. Does South Africa really play a role in such a scale where you've got a population of more than nearly 2 to 3 billion sitting on the east and a population of another 3 billion sitting in the west? In my time, Donald, the Berlin Wall came down. In my time, 68, apparently we put a man on the moon. In my time, the Berlin Wall collapsed. Glasnost and perestroika toppled the Soviet Union. In my time, apartheid was defeated. In my time, we had a black president. So many things happened in my lifetime. I'm wondering, in the next lifetime, what will happen? And to me, I want to be part of that change. There was a time that this country, in actual fact, was the hope of the world. Not because of our economy, not because of our massive military power, and definitely not the size of our population. The reason we were punching above our weight was because of a country that brought hope. This year is the build-up to hope, where black and white will realize one thing. Shall we cut each other? We bleed red. If you bleed green, you've got to get out of the room. So I have hope, Tom. I have an everlasting hope. They used to say, I will be the one that will switch off the lights. It's changed. I will be the guy that will remove your inverter.
You've been part of so many things, business, politics. Is there anything that you regret? Is there anything that you'd say, oh, I didn't like doing that, I would have done it otherwise?
No regrets. But if you really put me in a situation of about to waterboard me, I would tell you there is one thing I regret, and that is not giving time to more things that really matter. There's so many opportunities to spend more, greater, stunning time, but that only comes with age. Would I have done things exactly the same? Probably not, because hindsight is a perfect science. But here's the thing, Donald. In conclusion, 469333225 and the bonus ball is 12 for Friday's lotto. No, it's not. We don't know the future. The only thing we can do is work towards the future that we would like. And this is the time. This is the moment. No matter where you come from, to make a decision where you want to go to. And I say it again. Only through care, unity, sacrifice, and dignity, and putting the past behind us. Not forgetting it, but not living it. And that's the future.